Hello, fabulous scholars. Just to quickly recap what happened last time, we learned that there was a merchant Aegeon who'd been arrested for coming to Ephesus, ruled by a duke, and the duke had explained Ephesus and Syracusa, where Aegeon is from, are fighting, and they're taking each other's people prisoner and killing them if they can't pay 1,000 gold coins for ransom. And instead of arguing against his punishment, Aegeon says, I don't care. I'm really sad. I don't care. Kill me if that's the punishment. And that confuses the Duke because usually people are like, please don't kill me. I'll do anything you want. So he asks Aegeon to tell him his story, which Aegeon was in the middle of doing, explaining that he was married and he and his wife had identical twin sons. And on the same day their sons were born, another woman had her own identical twin sons. She was really poor, so Aegeon and his wife adopted them. They were going to raise them and have them be servants to their sons someday. But then it was time to go home, and so they set sail on a ship, and that's where we left off. Doesn't seem like a big deal, except that Aegeon ended by saying this was like the worst choice I ever made to get on that ship. So let's see what happens to them. So they're on the ocean in their ship. A league from Epidamnum had we sailed, before the always window-baying deep gave any tragic instance of our harm. So we were on the boat, sailing along. We'd gone about a couple miles, and then the weather started getting bad. But longer did we not retain much hope, for what obscured light the heavens did grant, did but convey unto our fearful minds a doubtful warrant of immediate death. So the sky got dark, the waves got big. I was actually kind of glad that I couldn't see much because everything I did see told me our ship is going down. Things are not going well. Which, though myself would gladly have embraced, yet the incessant weepings of my wife, weeping before for what she saw must come, and the piteous plainings of the pretty babes that mourn for fashion, ignorant what to fear, forced me to seek delays for them and me. So I was using my fortitude, and if I had been on the ship and it sank, so be it. That happens sometimes to merchants. But my wife is crying. She doesn't want to die, and she knows that bad things are coming, and all the babies are crying because that's what babies do. And so I decided I better do something. The sailors sought for safety bar our boat, and left the ship, then sinking right to us. So I was looking around for the sailors to help, only to notice they'd already gotten in the lifeboats and gone, and our ship was sinking faster and faster and faster. I had to do something. My wife, more careful for the latter-born, had fastened him unto a small spare mast, such as seafaring men provide for storms. So my wife was always concerned about our second-born son, and so she had tied him to a mast, a big log that the sailors had on the ship just in case the original one broke. To him, one of the other twins was bound. So now they're tying on one of their adopted sons, whilst I had been like heedful of the other. So he's taking one of each pair of twins and tying them to the end of this mast. So they've got the babies tied to a log. The children thus disposed, my wife and I, fixing our eyes on whom our care was fixed, fastened ourselves at either end of the mast, and floating straight, obedient to the stream, was carried toward Corinth as we thought. So their ship is sunk, they're tied to a log, the wife with two of the babies, him with Aegeon with two of the babies, and they're floating along, heading towards Corinth. Maybe things will work out and this will be okay. At length the sun, gazing upon the earth, dispersed those vapors that had offended us, and by the benefit of his wished light, the seas waxed calm. So finally the sun rose, the storm ended, the waters went calm. And we discovered two ships from afar, making amain to us, of Corinth that, of Epidamnum this. So two ships are heading towards them. One of them is from Corinth, and one of them is from Epidamnum. But ere they came, oh, let me say no more, gather the sequel by that which went before. So I've told you my story and what happened. We're floating there on a log. Ships are coming towards us. I don't want to tell you the rest of the story. Please don't make me tell you the rest of the story. Now, hopefully you, like the Duke who's been listening to all of this, thinks, don't stop there. And the Duke says, nay, forward, old man, do not break off so, for we may pity, though not pardon thee. You can't stop there, is really what the Duke is saying. I feel bad for you. I'm not going to let you escape your punishment, but you got to tell me the rest of the story. And so Egeon gives a sigh, and he goes back to his story. He continues, oh, had the gods done so, I had not now worthily termed them merciless to us. I wish the gods had been so kind to us, and I wouldn't be here to tell you this story. For ere the ships could meet by twice 5 leagues, we were encountered upon a mighty rock, which being violently borne upon, our helpful ship was splitted in the midst. So we were floating along, but before the ships could get there, our log hit a rock, and the mast was split into 2 parts. We're not tied all together anymore. So they broke apart. So that in this unjust divorce of us, fortune had left to us both alike what to delight in and what to sorrow for. Her part, poor soul, seeming as burdened with lesser weight, but not with lesser woe, was carried with more speed before the wind. So we each had the same things to be happy about. We had 2 of our children, but we also had the same things to worry about. We only had 2 of our children and we didn't have the other. Well, her log weighed less, so she traveled really fast and far away from me. And in our sight, they 3 were taken up by fishermen of Corinth, as we thought. So they had sailed faster away, and they were picked up by another boat, a boat from Corinth, and taken away. At length, another ship seized upon us, and knowing whom it was their hap to save, gave healthful welcome to their shipwrecked guests. Finally, that other ship came and rescued me and 2 of my sons, and they recognized me, and they were very glad to offer me any help that they could, and would have reft the fishers of their prey, had not their bark been very slow of sail. They would have chased after the fishermen of Corinth who picked up my wife and the other 2 kids, only their boat was too slow. It would never catch up. And therefore homeward did they bend their course, and so they took me to Epidamnum. Thus have you heard me severed from my bliss, that by misfortunes my life prolonged, to tell sad stories of my own mishaps. So we were saved so that I could tell sad stories of all these horrible things that happened to me. Yay. And the Duke is kind of shocked by this. And he says, and for the sake of them thou sorrowest for, do me the favor to dilate at full what hath befallen of them and thee till now. Okay, so I know why your life has been really sad, but you still had 2 sons. Tell me what happened. What happened since the boat accident? I know you're sad about your wife and 2 of your kids, but you still have the other 2. And Egeon explains, my youngest boy and yet my eldest care, at 18 years became inquisitive after his brother, and importuned me that his attendant, so his case was like, reft of his brother, but retained his name, might bear him company in quest of him. My sons grew up, and when they were 18 years old, they wanted to find their identical twins. They even went so far as to change their names to be the exact same names as their identical twins. That's going to be important. And so both his biological son and his adopted son want to go find their twin brothers, who now they all have the same names. They're exactly alike. Not even their names are different anymore. And Egeon continues, Whom whilst I labored of a love to see, I hazarded the loss of whom I loved. I also really wanted to see my other kids and my wife, so when they were 18 years old, I let them go away and travel and see if they could find their brothers. 5 summers have I spent in farthest Greece, roaming clean through the bounds of Asia, and coasting homeward came to Ephesus. Hopeless to find, yet loath to leave unsought, or that or any place that harbors men. They've been gone for 5 years and I've heard nothing from them. So I started looking for my sons. I've traveled all around Greece and into Asia. And I decided, because I couldn't find them, to head home. But as I headed home, I passed by Ephesus and I knew I had to check. What if they were here? I had to look. But here must end the story of my life. And happy were I in my timely death, could all my travels warrant me they live. So now you know everything. My journey is over, my search is over, and I wouldn't regret a single thing if I just knew that my sons still lived. And the Duke, at the end of this, is kind of like, wow. And he says, hapless Egeon, whom the fates have marked to bear the extremity of dire mishap. Egeon, wow, that's a lot to happen to you. I'm so sorry. Now trust me, were it not against our laws, against my crown, my oath, my dignity, which princes would they not disannul, my soul should advocate for thee. If it weren't against everything I think is important, our laws, being in charge of people, I would argue that you should live. But though thou art adjudged to the death, and passed sentence may not be recalled, but to our honor's great disparagement, yet will I favor thee in what I can. You've already been sentenced to death, and I can't change that punishment, but there is something I can do to help you. Therefore, merchant, I'll limit thee this day to seek thy life by beneficial help. Try all the friends thou has in Ephesus, beg thou or borrow to make up the sum and live. So I'll give you another day to go around Ephesus, and you can ask people for money and beg for money and borrow money. And if you can collect it all, the 1,000 gold coins, then you get to live. Yay! And the Duke is really pleased with himself. I forgot to put the soldiers back. Sorry, scholars. The soldiers are watching everything. The Duke finishes. If no, then thou art doomed to die. Jailer, take him to thy custody. Of course, if you can't find the money, then you will have to die. Jailers, take him with you. And the jailer says, I will, my lord. And Egeon doesn't want one more day. He is done. He doesn't know anyone in Ephesus, and if he can't find his sons, he doesn't care. So he says, hopeless and helpless doth Egeon wend, but to procrastinate his lifeless end. So the soldiers lead Egeon off stage. He's got one more day to try and find the money for something he doesn't care about anymore. And the Duke is quite pleased with himself. He thinks he's saved Egeon's life, or at least given him the chance to save his life. So he also exits quite happily, compared to Egeon especially. So no mistakes yet, right? It's called the Comedy of Errors, the play with a happy ending full of many mistakes. But they're going to start happening next time, scholars. Until then, bye.